Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Tunnel of Lights, and I'm sipping on some cinnamon plum tea. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, deep yellow, fluorescent orange, burnt umber, which I like to call brown, purple violet, Mars black, and cobalt blue. And of course you can switch up those colors if you'd like, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a standard number 2 pencil that I'll be using for some drawing, and then I have 3 brushes from my personal brush line, which is Michelle the Painter brushes. I have a 1-inch wide flat bristle brush. I have a 1/4 inch wide flat bristle brush, and I have a number 3 round synthetic brush. And I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you can switch those up as well if you'd like to. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, in the video description, I will be providing you with a few additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you could purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the same size and type of canvas to the same type of paints and brushes and all the good stuff in between. So that's there. There's also a link where you could download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be drawing an outline for our land, and we're also going to be painting in the base coat for our sky and our land. I'm going to use my pencil to do my drawing, and then I'm going to use my large brush to paint in the base coat. So we're going to draw our outline first. What I'm going to do on the left-hand side of my canvas is I'm going to find myself about halfway up or down my canvas, and then I'm going to come about halfway between that and the bottom of my canvas, which is maybe somewhere about here. Maybe a little off, a little higher than that quarter-way mark. And then on the right-hand side, I'm going to come, if I came up this high on this side, over here, I'm going to come just about the same height, somewhere in through here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find myself the center of my canvas on the bottom, and I'm going to come up about 2.5 inches and give myself a marker. I did this because I want the center of my landscape to be a little bit lower where my young girl is going to be walking, so I just want to make sure that I don't make that too high up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect here to here and here to here using a nice kind of wavy type of a line to indicate maybe some little snow piles of sorts. You don't have to do yours exactly as mine. Yours can be much different than mine if you want to. I'm just having mine go up a little bit on the side, so that way it kind of draws the eye towards the center of the canvas. So maybe just bring this down in through here, and then maybe up just a little bit in through here. And again, yours doesn't have to be exactly as mine. That's about what I'm going to do. So I'm going to put my pencil away. I'm going to take out my large brush. I'm going to be painting my sky with black, blue, and white. And then my land, I'm going to be doing brown, purple, and white. I'm going to start at the top with both black and blue on my brush at the same time. I'm going to be using a left to right brush stroke, and I'm going to be using very light pressure, which means I'm not going to be pushing super hard and dragging my paint a lot. I kind of want that paint to just float on the surface of the canvas, so I don't have to do too many layers to this background. I just picked up more blue as I'm coming down. I do want the blue to be evident. I know that the black can very easily overpower the blue. So as I'm going through this process, if I'm detecting it's too black, I will definitely back off on the black. I might add more black to it in a few minutes, but right now I'm just picking up more blue with my dirty brush, so you can see that the black is still kind of working its way off of my brush as I'm coming down that sky. I might end up adding a little bit more black up at the top, but I know because I used the black up at the top that it will get it will turn that blue darker as it's coming down into, or as it's drying. That blue will get a little bit darker as it dries. So as I'm right about in this area, I'm going to start picking up a tiny bit of white and blue on my dirty brush. So again, I most likely still have a little bit of black on there as well, so it may turn a shade of bluish gray, which is perfect. I don't necessarily want this to go all the way white down at the bottom, because I know that we have lots of twinkly lights that we're going to be incorporating on the painting, so I just want this to be an atmospheric type of dimension behind there. Right now I am scrubbing a little bit harder than I was at the top, so I can just get this nice soft effect down at the bottom. But what I was saying was I don't want this to go all the way white, because I want my twinkly stars and lights to be evident on top of this background. So if I bring the background too light, then the lights will have less of an impact. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go back and forth just to get all these colors to merge well together. I may opt to do a second coat on this background after it dries and I see what it does. I might go a little bit darker or a little bit lighter, but I'm going to just roll with it for right now, and then I'll let it dry and see if I want to do a second coat. I'm going to wash and dry my brush right now, and I'm going to do my first coat to the snow on the ground. We're going to have a second coat later, which is going to include little highlights on it, but right now I'm just going to put a base coat, which is going to be with purple and brown is where I'm starting. I have purple and brown, about equal parts on my brush, and I'm just going to do this real kind of messy, almost like a circular type of a brush stroke to get this on here in these corners. I want it to be dark at the edges and get lighter and lighter as it goes towards the center of my landscape. So that's pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of white paint on my dirty brush to get this to blend in a little bit as it's coming towards the center. I'm bumping right into my background or my sky area with my brush, so that way there's no space between my ground and my sky that isn't painted. And again, I don't need this to be a perfect coat. I'm really just looking to get something on here that is going to allow me to start the full detail process as I go through the whole painting. And then once I've got this done, we are going to be using, we're going to use this, let's use our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put this large brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to do the base coat for our lights. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The color I'm going to use is white. I do recommend before you start this step that you make sure that your canvas is dry. So this is that time where you get to take an extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry, or you can do as I did and just whip out a blow dryer and get it dry that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing a series of arcing type of sequential dots to make up this large lighted archway that our little person is walking through. I want there to be a lot of perspective, so I'm going to have the arch small down in through here because this is where my person is going to be walking. And then it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as it gets towards the outside of my canvas. So I'm going to be using white, and I'm going to be using a circular kind of scrubbing type of a technique to get the initial layer of these strands of lights on, and then I'll be using the white and doing almost like a little polka dotty type of a brush stroke to get the little tiny ones that are going to be all throughout the sky. I'm going to give myself kind of an outline of each one of these strands of lights first, and then I'll show you the technique how I'm going to paint them on. So I'm going to start with a little bit of white paint on my brush, just a little tiny bit. I'm just really kind of almost giving myself a little sketcherly roadmap at this point. So if I find myself about the center of my canvas on my horizon line, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the left of that about 1/2 inch to 1 inch. And if this is the center, I'm going to go to the right of that, maybe about 2.5 to 3 inches. This is going to be my smallest arc. I'm going to go to the center of that and come up about 3 inches. So I just wanted to kind of give you that little marker, and then I'm just going to kind of lightly make these soft kind of polka dots in order to tell me that's that particular one. And then I'm going to do that same process for all of my other arcs. So I'm going to have another one in through here, and as I get farther and farther away, my arcs are going to get wider and wider away. So I'm just going to do this really quick to show you how my strands of lights, and then I'll show you how I'm going to go through the process of getting those lights on there. So this right hand side, I think I've got my strands a little bit closer than I do on the left hand side, but you could certainly make yours whatever way you want. You can see as I'm coming over this left hand side, I'm getting them a little bit more farther apart. This one I'm going to get to go pretty darn high up in through here. And again, I don't have much paint on my brush right now. I'm really just kind of giving myself this light kind of sketcherly thought process to get these strands of lights on here. Over here, I'm going to have this one kind of coming in through here. I'm going to dot this one up in through here. Let's see, it's going to come about over here. So again, this is just kind of getting me started to tell me where I want these strands of lights, and in a second I will show you how we're going to paint them in. So this one's going to go over in through here, just these real light faint lines. I think this one I want to come all the way over in through here, and then just dot this up, and I've got the another strand that's going to go over towards the top of the canvas in through here and then over here, and then I'm just going to have one in each one of those top corners. So that does that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing big glow dots for the lights within these strands, and then I'm going to do just little sparkle dots between them. These ones on the strands, I'm going to be doing a circular type of motion, and my glow dots will get bigger and bigger as they go far away. So I'm going to demonstrate 1 or 2 on each row, and then I'll demonstrate the little dots, the little in-between dots. So I've got a little bit of white paint on my brush, so I just kind of scrub it in a circle, and every time I move farther away, my circle gets a little bit bigger. I want these edges of these circles to be really soft, so that way it looks like they're glowing. It's okay if they begin to overlap one another, so I just am starting in the center and just kind of letting it overlap and get a little bit more soft. You don't have to follow or put one on every single one of these dots. That's just there to give you a guideline. So again, I'm starting here, I start in the middle, and then this one's going to be bigger than this one. And I repeat this process throughout the entire formation. So I'm going to just do this whole row, and you can do all the ones on this row and then all the ones on this row. You don't have to do it in this order. I'm just doing it in this order so you can see how I progressively get larger with that sphere or that glow. Because I'm starting in the middle, that's going to allow it to look brighter in the middle and more soft on the edges. Then when I get in this type of a region up and through here, it's going to go off of my canvas. So I'm going to allow that nucleus or the center to be there, and then I let that glow part go as far and as wide as I feel it should, and let it work its way off of the canvas itself. And then I'll do I'm going to pretend like there's one way up here in the corner, so I'm just going to kind of give myself a little kind of larger little edge to the glow dot over and through here. And that's what I would do for each one of these. Start small, get bigger, 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 and then in between them, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the corner of my brush and make these. I needed to add it more paint. These a whole bunch of little tiny speckle marks. These are going to be little twinkle lights that we're going to put in between the whole pattern. So I know that it would be a little bit repetitive if you were to have to sit here and watch me make 9 million dots or 9 million glow dots. So now that I've shown you the process of how I'm going to execute this, I'm going to fast forward the videotape so you don't get bored watching me do little dots in slow motion or in real time. So I'm going to just repeat this step on all of this area, and then when we're done, we're going to use this same brush for the next step. So once you get done painting a million little dots and glow marks, what we're going to do is we're going to be using the same brush for the next step. So you can just wash it and dry it and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the color on our lights. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm going to use are white, blue, yellow, and orange. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm in essence going to be enhancing my glow with some color, and then I will most likely bring even more brightness to the center of a lot of these lights. I'm not going for a real strong color on mine. I'm going for kind of a soft type of pastel colors within my lights. You could certainly use red or green or vibrant purple, whatever colors you want as your holiday lights. I'm going for more of just a soft kind of ethereal type of glow to them. But I'm going to show you how using this lighter background that we did for the lights will help to enhance those colors. Acrylic paint is transparent, or you can see through it because it is a water-based paint that a lot of times doesn't have good opacity, which means if there's good opacity, it's difficult to see through it. So white is hard to see through it, and putting that as a background will not only allow our colors on top of it to be brighter, but the colors on top of it, you'll be able to see through them, so that white will enhance their vibrancy. If I put a see-through color on a dark background, it would stay dark. It would see that darkness underneath it. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using this brush, and I'm going to, in essence, kind of put almost like a glaze on top of these colors, which will allow for that lightness underneath to show, and then it'll also have a little bit of color. So I don't want this, again, to be super bright in boldness for my color, so I'm going to soften up some of my colors that I'm going to use. So I'm going to start with my cobalt blue, and I'm going to add just a teeny tiny bit of white paint into it, so it's just a little bit lighter than my cobalt blue. This will give me a nice appearance on this background. So once I've got that color, what I can do with it, I do not need a lot. What I can do, I'll just wipe it off on my paper towel, and I can use it on top of one of these glow dots and just bring it out in this way, and you can see the lightness underneath it is going to allow that blue to really pop on top of the background. And I can even take this blue and do it, kind of scrub it on top of some of these little other dots that I have put in place. And then once I put as much blue on there as I want, what I can do is I can pick up a tiny bit of white paint on my brush, and I can brighten up the center of that dot or of that light. And I can keep brightening that center until I have it glowing as much as I want it to. You might want some of them to be really subtle. You might want some of them to be really bold. Whatever works for you is whatever your visual preference is. And then what I'll do is I'll do my blue ones, and then I'm going to switch colors. So once I've got all my blue ones, I'll wash and dry my brush. And then let's say I want to do some orange ones. So again, I want to soften my fluorescent orange. I don't want that color on my canvas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fluorescent orange. I'm actually going to add a touch of yellow and a little bit of white to it. So this way I've almost got this nice peachy type of color that will feed my painterly eye and make my eye happy. So once I've got that color, I just make sure that I don't have too much on my brush, and then I would go ahead and repeat that same process to however many I wanted to have with this peachy color. I could even just make some of these even more bold. I can soften them up a little bit by just kind of using that light airy type of brush stroke right on top of that original mark that we made. And then once I've got as many as those that I want, I just pick up a little bit of white and I can go and enhance those centers. And it doesn't have to just be a dot. You can take it and you can spin it out so it kind of is brighter in that center and almost gets that real glow around those edges. And you keep repeating it. If you wanted that orange to be brighter, you could come back with a little bit more orange, and you just keep repeating it until you've got it in the intensity that you want. Now I'm going to do one more color so you can see how the colors I choose are going to affect it. So I'm going to do a light yellow. So I'm going to take my yellow and I'm going to add a tiny bit of white paint to it. I don't need this to go too light. I know that it's going to have a big impact on my painting, so I'm just going to use a very little bit on my brush and wipe it off as I've been doing with everything else, and then I can just take it and just rub it right on top of that original glow dot that I had. And then I can take as many little yellow dots as I want. I can intermingle them with the other ones. I can do it in whatever order I want. And then once I've got as many on as I want, I'm just unloading my brush right now. Once I've got as many on as I want, I'll go back and I'll dip into my white paint and then get those centers to glow a bit more. And I would just repeat this throughout the entire canvas. I am going to, again, so you don't get bored with watching me do 900 lights, I'll fast forward during my process, but this is what the process is going to be. I'm going to do the blue ones, then I'll do the orange ones. And again, if you want anything more intense like the orange, I might find myself dipping a little bit more into more of the fluorescent orange color to get some of these to go a little bit brighter. But you can, have fun with it, make it into whatever you like. And I'm just going to wash and dry my brush, start with my blues, and continue on in that order. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to start with my light blue color. So once you have your million lights all nice and colored, we are going to be using our large brush for the next step. So you can put this medium brush away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish the snow on the ground. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors that I'm going to use are white, orange, blue, purple, and brown. And what I'm in essence going to do, just really want a second layer on the ground, but I also want to illuminate the snow right in through here. So I'll be using a lot of white in through here, but then I'll also come in and put maybe a little bit of glow from some of my lights onto that snow. So I'm going to start with a tiny bit of white paint on my brush, and I'm going to be using kind of like this left to right type of brush stroke in a loose type of way, so that way it's not too straight across. I want it the brightest in through here, but then I'll let it fade out as I'm going up into or out away from this center area. So I don't have a ton of paint on my brush. I'm just kind of working it out in this direction over here. I can even put a little bit like on the edge of a hill. If I want there to kind of look like there's a little bit of a hill appearing, I can put a little bit on the edge of that without going too invasive. I don't need it to be super duper white, but I'm just using it right now to give myself the idea of where I do want hills if I want them, or little snow drifts if I want them to appear. So that's looking pretty good for my start. I'm running out of paint as we speak, so that's fabulous. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start tapping into the brown and the purple, but I also want to incorporate the coolness of the night air, as well as the luminescent values or reflective values from our light. So I'll use blue as well. I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm picking up a tiny bit of blue, purple, and brown, just an itty bitty touch on the corner of my brush, and I'm going to start over on the right hand side over in through here, and I'm just going to kind of lightly almost kind of swirl it around a little bit and get it to blend in a little bit with that lighter area that we had on the top. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit more purple on my brush just to get that blue to not be so powerful. That's looking pretty good. Going to put just a little bit in through here. And I don't need this to be very vibrant in color with high saturation of the blue or the purple. So that's why I'm also using the brown. And I know that the brown will get darker as it dries. So I'm looking for it to be pretty dark down in the bottom left and the bottom right corners. Again, blue, purple, and brown is what I've picked up on my brush for this bottom left-hand corner in through here, and it's working on top of that original layer with a hint of a little bit of blue in here, so it gives it that reflective quality from the lights above. And then you can certainly make it as lumpy or bumpy as you want. I'm thinking that this is looking pretty good. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit more white on my brush without washing my brush, so I can get this center area to just kind of intermingle with the darker stuff that I just put on in through here. And again, just a light touch to get this all to just kind of meld together so it doesn't look like individual colors just painted on there. This way they kind of blend together and they look like they are just almost fading into the darkness towards the bottom of my canvas. Now what I'm going to do, that's looking pretty good to me. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush so I can put some of these little reflective qualities from the lights above without running the risk of having my brush too dirty. So I'm digging the way that that's looking, so I'm going to wash and dry my brush now. And I'm just going to pick up a little bit of maybe that peachy color that I created, so just a teeny tiny bit of that on the edge of my brush, and I'm just going to kind of sprinkle in just a little bits and pieces of it on the top of my snow in through here, so that's going to give you that little reflective quality. I'm going to now pick up I wipe my brush off on my paper towel, and I'm picking up a teeny bit of that yellow. I don't want to make, my snow look too overall yellow or too orange, so this is just little hints to make it look like it's glowing. And then I would let it dry, and if there's anything additional that I want to do, I certainly would, but I'm going to be using my pencil for the next step. So once you've got your laying done, you can put your large brush away, take out your pencil, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be drawing an outline for our little girl. I'm going to be using my pencil to draw. You could certainly use any drawing utensil that is comfortable to you. Whatever works on your end is totally fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to guide you through a series of markers and basic shapes, and that way we'll have something that we can utilize during the coloring in process of painting. I'm not going for any fine-tuned detail here. I'm just going for some nice basic shapes that we'll be able to make something really cute out of. So what I'm going to do is I am having my little person a little bit to the left of the center of this arch. So if this is the center of my arch, I'm going to have my person starting somewhere in this vicinity. What I'm going to first do is I'm going to draw myself a long rectangle type of a shape. I know that my pencil is not going to be very visible to you guys on camera, so I'm going to, up in the top half, use a white pencil so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to start right about here, give myself a kind of a top curvy line that's maybe, I would say, about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch wide. Then I'm going to come directly below that. I'm about 2.5 to 3 inches in length here. And I'm going to do the same thing down at the bottom. So I'm going to give myself kind of this 1/2 to 3/4 inch wide horizontal type of a line. I'm going to connect these top line and bottom line with just a loose kind of rectangle type of a shape. I'll put my white pencil on in a second so you can, you might be able to see that, but let's just give you some white pencil so you can make sure that you see it. So something like that. So that's the shape that I'm going to start with. Now I can just build everything else off of that. I'm going to come up to, I would say, for me, about 1/3 of the way up this shape, right about in through here. This is going to represent where her jacket meets her skirt. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give her a little skirt that just kind of pops out in through here. I'm going to meet it with this bottom part in through here. So this will be the bottom part of her skirt. This is kind of the right side of her skirt, and then this is the right side of her torso in through here. I'm going to give her a couple of little feet. We're going to, if you need to, also at this point, I'll show you when to erase guidelines. So you could erase this one right here. We don't need this one anymore. That now becomes her skirt. I can give her a little leg that's kind of kicking out like this, as if she's walking towards the tunnel of lights. I'm going to put her foot, this will be like the bottom side of her foot, something like this. And to me, she's got like a jacket, a little girl skirt, and maybe even some pants or boots that she's wearing. So I'm not going to do anything too fancy in through here. I would kind of see the toe of her other foot in through here, in my opinion. So I'm going to put that on as well. Now what I'm going to do, and this will look much better when we paint. This is just a nice generic shape for us to start. Now I'm going to put her left arm on. So I'm going to come about almost halfway between here and here. Maybe if this is halfway, I'm going to have her shoulders a little bit higher than that. Let me get out my white pencil so you can see. So somewhere in through here is about where her shoulders are going to be. I'm going to pull her, give her an arm in through here, and then I'm going to have her little hand with her mitten just kind of hiding behind her skirt, something like that. You could, if you felt that you would have a little bit of a gap between her arm and her sweater, you could do that as well. I'm not sure if I'm going to see mine, but I'll put it there regardless. I'm going to go to the right of here to give her other shoulder, and I'm just going to bring this in a downward motion. Maybe put the inside of her arm in through here. She's going to be carrying a little lantern, switching to my pencil so you guys can see it. So there's the bottom of her sleeve, and then I'm going to have a little mitten in through here, and she's going to be carrying a lantern. You can really get fun and fancy with your lantern. You can have it as simple as I'm having mine. I just have a little handle in through here, and then just almost like a little bell type of a shape down in through there. I'm going to put more decorations as I paint it, but you can certainly do whatever you like on yours. Then I'm going to put her, she's going to have a little hat on, so I'm going to put that, this is the top of her head. I'm going to put a little rim on her hat like that, and a pom-pom. She's got a rim and a pom-pom, and you can even pull this out if the top it looks too square. I'm just going to round mine off a little bit, and then I'm going to draw a little outline for her hair. So I'm going to take it from the right hand corner of her hat and bring it into her shoulder, and then maybe just cascade it down her back a little bit, maybe even almost to her to that waistline. I'm going to just give her another little hairline in through here, and then I'm going to erase any of these lines that I think I could erase. So maybe this one in the hair, that could be erased, maybe the one inside the hat. You don't have to erase the lines, but if it's going to make your painting process easier, then you can certainly erase any of the guidelines that you feel are necessary. So we have a skirt, we have a torso with her sweater, we have a couple of mittens, her leg, her lantern, her hair, and her hat. And then we're going to be using our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your pencils away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the base coat for our young lady. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors that I'm going to use are purple, black, white, and brown. That's it. I'm going to be having her wear like a grayish type of jacket and pants, and then she's going to have a lavender type of skirt and hat, and then we'll do the base coat of the lantern in brown. So I'm using my small brush. What I'm going to first, and I'm going to do brown for her hair. What I'm going to first do is make myself two custom colors. I have a custom gray and a custom lavender. So what I did here is I mixed a little bit of black with a little bit of white to get myself a medium type of gray color. I'm not going too dark or too light. I'm just going to go with a nice medium color. So this way it has good opacity, which means you can't see through it, and I'll be able to add some good highlights and shadows on top of it for the other details that I want to put. Same thing with my lavender. I want her clothing to appear to be purple, but I know my purple is really see-through, so I'm going to do a base with this lavender color that has a lot of white in it, so it will cover up any of that background, and it'll allow me to put some good dimension on it as I go through the process. So how I got to this color was I used purple and gray. So you could start with just this gray in through here and spin it together, see if it turns into a color that is appealing to you, and if not, you just adjust it with either a little bit more purple, a little bit more black, a little bit more white, whatever works for you. So that's the color I'm going to be going for there. Then I'll be using brown as the base coat for her hair and for the lantern. So I'm going to start with my gray pieces, which is going to be her her pants, and I'm going to do her pants and her boots or shoes or whatever she's wearing on her feet first, and I'm going to just color them both in with this base coat of gray. Again, I'm going to be doing other details to this. This is just getting us started, getting a nice foundation for adding all of our little details that we'll be adding later. I'm going to just pick up more gray. I'm going to be doing her sweater or her jacket now. She's probably wearing a jacket, I would think. With this much snow on the ground, I would assume she'd be wearing a jacket. I'm putting, her glove is going to be that same color too. So just using the tip of my brush to work my way around my lines. I'm going to put it right up to the hair. You can even bump into the hair a little bit. That'll make it so when you do paint the hair, it looks like it's kind of overlapping that that jacket. And I'm bringing the waist of her jacket up pretty high, like right at her waist, maybe a little bit lower. So that way it looks like, you know, she probably has a really pretty like fairy type of dress on underneath, but you know, she needed to stay warm because of all the snow out there. So she had to put the winter coat on top of her pretty dress. So I kind of wanted it to give that that thought or that look to it. So again, just using my gray to get down this arm. And when you're doing clothing of this nature and trying to do figures, even when they're nice and small like this, giving these kind of organic lines, not super duper straight, but giving a little bump out where you think that wrist might be, giving a little bend where the mitten is going to be. Those type of just very subtle changes in the line work will really make a big difference to making this look a little bit more realistic as opposed to illustrative. So now that I've got that on there, I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put my, I'm going to do my brown pieces. So I'm going to do her hair with brown paint. We'll be, again, adding little highlights and shadows, but my brown is going to be see-through, so you'll probably detect some of the blue underneath it, but I'm just going to use it as my base coat. We'll be using black as a shadow, and we'll have a nice custom color for the highlights in a little bit, and you can cross it over into that jacket if you want to. I'm also going to use brown as my base coat for my lantern. So I'm going to bring the little handle of the lantern up a little bit so her hand kind of overlaps it a bit, just using the tip of my brush. I'm going to bring this down here, and she could be like swinging this lantern back, so if the lantern is not symmetrical from one side to the next, it's all right, because it could be distorted based on the way that she is swinging it. I know mine is not going to be perfectly symmetrical from one side to another, so I'm going to use it as an excuse that she's swinging it. We're going to blame it on her for not being symmetrical as it coming down towards the bottom. And again, make your lantern into whatever you want. I'm just using this as my kind of a nice structure to it. I'm even going to put a little maybe part where the flame or the light is in there, and you can put some little decorative kind of markings if you want to, like this. Maybe I'll bring a little bit of decorative element down towards the bottom as well. Yeah, that looks pretty to me. And then I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to be using my lavender color for the base coat of her skirt or the bottom of her dress. You imagine it to be whatever you would like. I'm going to bring this right over to her mitten, so that way it looks like the dress is kind of in motion. It's being taken as she's walking. It's behind her, so it's got a little bit of movement to it. You may still see your pencil underneath your paint or through your paint at this point, which is fine, because again, we're going to be doing a second coat, which is going to cover up all of those little imperfections. You can even ripple the bottom of the skirt if you want to, in order to again accentuate the movement on it. And I'm just kind of making sure I color that whole part in, and then I'm going to color her hat with the base coat of this lavender color. So I got her little pom-pom on top. I like this little hat. It's like a little bowler hat with a little pom-pom on it. It's a little fashionista hat is what she's wearing into her sparkly lit up little world she is entering. And then once we've got this colored in, we are going to be using this same small brush for the next step, so you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our young lady. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors I'm going to use are black, brown, white, probably some gray, definitely purple, yellow, and maybe that peach color. So we're going to use a lot of colors. And of course you could customize this to make it into whatever colors you want. If you want to wear in a red dress, have her wear in a red dress, feel free to make it into whatever you'd like. So what I'm going to in essence do is make very minimal detail to show shadows and highlights, which is going to explain the contours on her body, like a poofed out shoulder, or her hair is going to come over her shoulder, so it'll show the contour of that. It'll show a shadow underneath the hat. We'll put little highlights and shadows on the hat, maybe bump up that purple color on the hat and on the skirt. We'll make her pants and her feet look a little bit more believable. We're going to put a little shadow underneath her as well, and we'll finish up our lantern. But again, we're not going to be doing very much detail because it's a very small person and we don't need to do much to make it look believable. So I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black paint with a little bit of water on my brush. I'm going to put some strategic shadows right now in order to start my process. So I'm putting a little shadow underneath my skirt onto my pants, and I just picked up a little bit more water on my brush so I can blend this down into the pants a little bit like this. Then if I needed to, I could certainly pick up a little bit of gray, but I think I'm pretty safe. I'm also going to put a little flat part on the bottom of her foot so it looks like we're seeing like the heel of her shoe. So that's going to make it look like she's in motion, walking to her destination. I just need to see a little piece down and through there. I could even maybe put a little shadow on the bottom of this or on the side of this foot in through there. While I have this watered down black on my brush, I'm going to pull it out into this little shadow area. I'm adding a touch more water to my brush right now. I'm going to put a little shadow area in the snow. I don't need to do much. I'm thinking that this shadow is being caused by the lantern, and it's just a shadow of her leg. I feel like all of these lights up top are kind of diffusing the rest of the shadow that would be created by her. So I'm just going to create this little kind of essence of one that I feel might be caused by that lamp. And then I'm going to put a little bit of white paint on my brush to highlight this right hand side of the pants in through here. So this kind of gives me a little bit of a cuff. And again, I'm not doing a whole heck of a lot. I just really want to add the little bits of highlight to tell what's going on with the objects next to it. So that illuminated the pant leg, and I'm thinking that that's kind of all I need to do for that. I'll probably step back, and if I need to, after she's done, if I need to do something else, I will. I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that watered down black paint so I can put a little shadow underneath her hat onto her hair. So something like that is going to, again, just kind of catch the shadow making. Now I'm picking up brown to make sure that shadow just blends into the hair. I'll put a little highlight on the hair in a minute, but right now just kind of getting a little second coat on there. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit more of my black. I'm going to put a tiny bit of a shadow underneath her jacket, right where it's meeting her skirt in through here. Then I'm going to, without washing my brush, I'm going to pick up a little bit of purple on my brush. So I have purple on my dirty brush to give me a little bit more deep color in this skirt itself. I didn't pick up the lavender, I picked up the purple violet, and this is going to help me get some almost like little movement or ripples in that skirt. I'm going to pick up that lavender just to make sure that this blends in, and then I'll cap off the skirt with a little bit of white on my dirty brush. So again, just a little bit of white to make sure that I've got some movement, and all this looks like it's blending together nicely. And then I'm going to move on to her shirt. So that looks pretty good to me. It looks like it's coming out from behind her. I think I need a little bit more purple. I picked up a little more purple. Sorry. There we go. That looks good. I just wanted it to look like it had a little more movement. Perfect. So now I'm going to do her shirt. I don't need to do much to her shirt. I'm just going to add a little bit of white on my brush to give me a little bit of a highlight over on this right hand side, maybe a little bit on the cuff of her sleeve. Then I'm going to maybe just a touch over here. I feel like there's a lot of light above her too, so just going to kind of illuminate that area in through there. And now I'm going to pick up that gray to make sure that that white blends in. So picking up a little bit of my gray that we created just to get that to blend in nice and believably. That looks good. and oh, maybe a little highlight on this little wrist and through here. So a little bit of that white went back on my brush. And then I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of the watered down black just to give a little bit of a shadow on the back side of this arm, and maybe a little bit on that mitten. There, that looks good. So as I'm doing this, if I find that I feel I want more contrast or anything like that, I definitely amp it up. Like behind her back, underneath her hair, I just picked up a little bit more black paint. So the back side of her looks a little bit darker than her arms. So just those little, again, little tweaks like that are going to help to sell the believable story a little bit more. I'm going to move on to her hat, which is I'm going to start with my purple, my lavender, my purple violet color. I'm going to use that as kind of a shadow maker in through here, and then I'm going to pick up my lavender plus white on my brush to give myself a little highlight. So I started with just the purple violet. Now I'm going to lavender and a little bit of white to give myself a little highlight on the top of that. And you could even just dot or tap this in to give it a little texture if you wanted it to look like a fluffy little hat. Again, that would be up to you. I got it a little in my sky, but that's okay. We'll just consider that a twinkle light. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the lantern. So let me finish her hair first. So I'm going to pick up actually some of that custom peach color that we created plus brown on my brush, and I'm going to use that as a little highlight to her hair. So I have peach plus brown just to give myself a little bit of extra color in her hair, and I'm just going to bring it down this back, and this is just a little tiny accent to give the information of, the length of her hair, maybe some little movement to it. Now I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of white paint and give myself a little itty-bitty highlight on that right-hand side. I feel like I want more black on this left-hand side, so I just washed my brush. I picked up a little bit more black to get a little bit more darkness over on this side. I feel like I want a little bit more volume in her hair right here. So I just did it. A little bit of black to give me what I want. That looks pretty good to me. Now I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to finish the lantern. I'm going to start with just yellow on my brush. This is going to give me a glow around my lantern. It is very transparent, so I'm just going to put it right on top, and I blend it out. So I'm blending it out farther than the lantern. And this is going to tell the viewer that the light within the lantern is casting a glow in the atmosphere around it. I'm even going to put a tiny bit of this yellow on the ground. So I'm going to go a little bit away from it, and I'm going to pick up a touch of my yellow and put that on the ground. So again, it's going to add this cool visual illusion. Now I wipe my brush off. I'm picking up some white paint. I'm going to put a little vibrant light within the lantern. So I'm just taking white and I'm tapping it into the center of my lantern. And the white can kind of overlap some of those details that you did. That's what's going to make it look like it's glowing. And you could even put a little bit on this ground as well. And then you just fiddle with it until you feel like you have everything on there that you need to. And then we are going to be using this same small brush for the next step. So once you've got your cute little girl done, you can wash and dry your small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm going to be using my small brush. I'm going to be using black paint today, and I'm going to sign it in the bottom left-hand corner. I like to sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or even a symbol. You get to sign it however you'd like because it's your painting and you get to make whatever mark that you would like on it. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a very exciting image and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.